Are you aware of what's happening to the Bitcoin industry here in the UK? While the rest of the world wakes up to Bitcoin and its potential, our own government and regulators seem hell-bent on shutting it down. And in doing so, they're not just stifling innovation, it seems they're actively trying to hide what's been the best performing asset over the last decade from you and me. Now, before we dive into exactly what's going on and why, as a disclaimer, this video is intended for information and entertainment purposes only. It should not be considered financial advice. Any reference to financial products, investments, or services are general opinions and are not tailored to your personal circumstances. When investing, your capital is at risk and you may lose some or all of your investment. Past performance does not guarantee future results, so please always do your own research. But with all that out of the way, let's get into it. Now, just for a bit of context, I'm going to run through the basics of Bitcoin if you're not already clued up on it. So Bitcoin was the first ever cryptocurrency, and it was designed to be a perfect form of money, operating on a decentralized peer-to-peer network. The asset has a fixed supply of 21 million coins and a distributed ledger so that everyone can see every single transaction in history. It's never been hacked in the 16 years it's been around. No one can censor transactions or manipulate it. And for these reasons, it's become the 5th largest asset by market cap on the planet, with over a $2 trillion valuation. And over the last decade, it's been the best performing asset, with average returns of 80% a year. So with that outlined, how are the UK regulators approaching this thing? Well, despite all of this, the Financial Conduct Authority's approach to Bitcoin has frankly been bewildering. They're effectively lumping Bitcoin with every other crypto project under the sun, defining them collectively as restricted mass market investments, where if you invest in them, you should be prepared to lose all of your money. This standpoint demonstrates their distinct lack of understanding of this asset, as many people who study Bitcoin and crypto come to the conclusion that 99% of crypto is a scam, and at best, very few are speculative tech projects that could be likened to a tech penny stock. But Bitcoin is objectively completely different from all of these. It has no CEO or person in charge of it that could corrupt it. Its supply is fixed, and for any change to take place, you need the entire decentralized network to agree on that change. Now, because of this miscategorization, businesses and anyone trying to add value to the Bitcoin industry come up against obscene regulations which censor free speech around the asset. The FCA's financial promotions rules for crypto assets include things such as Bitcoin exchanges have to plaster "be prepared to lose all of your money" all over their websites and apps. Exchanges also have to implement a 24-hour cooling off period when setting up an account, as well as you having to fill out an extensive knowledge test demonstrating that you understand Bitcoin intricately and understand the risks. All promotional material must also be approved by the FCA prior to posting, which can come at a huge cost. And this even applies to social media influencers who may just be giving their opinions, exercising freedom of speech. Personally, I've even lost brand deals over the last few years because I make content about Bitcoin, as the regulators just make it too much of a risk for these businesses. So if you've ever wondered why you don't see many UK finance YouTubers talking about Bitcoin alongside stocks and shares, that might have something to do with it. I don't think it's right to tell anyone to buy anything directly, and I've never told anyone to buy Bitcoin. I just think it's important to share the facts about this asset that has helped me so much, and encourage people to learn about it themselves to make their own minds up. I understand that Bitcoin is very volatile over the short term, and it's important that that is explained, as well as other nuances that it has. But when does this regulation from the FCA take a step too far and actually become censorship? Their job is to protect consumers by setting standards. But when zooming out and looking over a long time horizon at this asset, they are protecting consumers from the best performing assets of the last decade. Due to all of this, the mainstream media also don't want to talk about it, as they fear regulatory backlash, and they just regurgitate the same old ancient narratives that can easily be debunked. For example, Bitcoin has no intrinsic value. Well, what about the pound? There is no gold standard anymore. Bitcoin is backed by a decentralized network of computers and mathematical code. The pound is literally backed by nothing. Then we have the narrative that Bitcoin is only used by criminals. Well, actually, every currency is used by criminals. But government-issued currencies are actually more popular, as every Bitcoin transaction is actually traceable, making it less than ideal for them. JP Morgan has been fined numerous times for inadequate money laundering controls and surveillance failures. Most recently in 2024, when they were fined almost $350 million. And then finally, you have the classic, it's a Ponzi scheme. But unlike a Ponzi scheme, Bitcoin is transparent, decentralized, and with no beneficiary in charge. So who's going to benefit? Now, interestingly, banks have also become increasingly hostile towards Bitcoin service providers and anyone dealing with crypto. Many have restrictions on how much money you can deposit into exchanges, some even deciding not to allow customers to interact with them altogether. And in extreme cases, people have even been debanked for legally dealing with crypto firms. To me, this kind of overreach is absolutely insane, and it's outrageous to restrict what you can do with your own money. When compared to gambling websites, limits and restrictions like this are nowhere to be found. It would be far easier to go and bet your life savings on a horse than it would be to buy Bitcoin. Now, my first thought when hearing stories like this is that it's censorship and complete overreach from banks, who must have an ulterior motive, which in some cases I believe it possibly is. But there's also another factor that plays a significant role too. So shout out to Robin Thatcher, the Bitcoin accountant, for bringing this to my attention. I'll leave all of his links down below in the description. But in 2024, UK rules changed on authorised push payment fraud, or APP, where banks suddenly became liable to reimburse customers who fell victim of APP fraud. That means that even if you fell for a scam, the bank would actually be liable and have to pay for damages. And this significant change is likely becoming an increasing cost for banks. Now, because the wider crypto market is also riddled with scammers, from the bank's point of view, to reduce their exposure to APP fraud, restricting all interactions with crypto services makes logical sense for them, despite then making life very difficult for genuine service providers. Now, beyond these regulatory hurdles for businesses and banks, these policies directly impact your ability to invest wisely. Here in the UK, individuals are taxed on interest earned on their savings, as well as investment returns. But we do have tax-advantaged accounts like SIPPs and ISAs. These allow you to earn interest and invest in stocks, shares, funds and bonds, and crucially, any gains that you make within them are completely tax-free. But guess what asset you can't directly hold within an ISA or a SIPP? You guessed it, Bitcoin. Despite its track record over the last decade, and despite its growing adoption globally, the government and HMRC effectively make it impossible for those to benefit in tax-advantaged accounts. This means if you want to own Bitcoin, you're forced to hold it outside of these beneficial wrappers, exposing you to capital gains tax on any profits. Unlike in the US and other jurisdictions where spot Bitcoin ETFs are now available, in the UK, retail investors currently cannot buy these. This means if you want to benefit from tax-free gains, you're ultimately driven away from owning Bitcoin itself or any one-to-one Bitcoin exposure product, and you're forced into Bitcoin treasury companies that trade on the stock market. And these are arguably far more risky and historically much more volatile. According to the FCA, they are considering lifting the ban on crypto-related products, but currently it's unknown when this change may come into effect. I firmly believe that Bitcoin is a currency and think capital gains tax is completely immoral, when for the most part people are simply moving their money into alternative assets just to try and preserve their purchasing power. And this is a critical risk when saving in a government-issued currency that they can print at any time. Now, it's not just the regulators having an impact on this industry. Our government seems to have its head firmly in the sand regarding Bitcoin. Take Emma Reynolds, the Economic Secretary to the Treasury. Despite Bitcoin Policy UK, a group of experts who dedicate their time for free, offering to provide direct information about Bitcoin as to how it could be used as a reserve asset, their insights are being rejected flat out. We're talking about a country that prides itself on being a financial hub, yet it's refusing to engage with arguably the most significant financial innovation of our time. And at the same time as all of this, other countries around the world are waking up to the potential and the benefits of this asset, even by just having a little bit of exposure or making regulations a bit more friendly. Jurisdictions like Singapore, Switzerland, and even parts of the United States are developing clear, nuanced regulatory frameworks that differentiate Bitcoin and other riskier tokens. They're actively trying to attract talent, capital, and innovation, recognizing the immense economic opportunity. The US has now established a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and within Trump's administration, Bo Hines has said they want as much Bitcoin as they can get, and they're actively trying to accumulate it in budget-neutral ways. Mortgage applications in the US are now also taking into consideration crypto holdings. Then we have countries like El Salvador and Bhutan, which are fully embracing Bitcoin by using it as a reserve asset, and they're actively mining it with power from their abundant renewable energy resources. Bhutan now holds over $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, which is huge, and El Salvador famously made Bitcoin legal tender back in 2021. Now, on the topic of Bitcoin mining, possibly one of the most frustrating aspects of this government's ignorance is their missed opportunity to stabilise the UK's grid and bring down energy costs for everyone. The UK generates a significant amount of renewable energy, particularly wind, which often goes to waste because our grid can't handle the excess. National Grid literally pay the wind farms to turn off their turbines because we can't use the power. And this is costing the country hundreds of millions of pounds a year, with this year's current total sitting at around £691 million. If they were to just divert the abundant energy to Bitcoin mining machines, this could solve the problem of the overloading grid. It could entice Bitcoin mining businesses to the UK to generate tax revenue for the country, and potentially it could generate the government Bitcoin earnings that could be held as a strategic asset. But unfortunately, Ed Miliband, the Secretary for Energy, doesn't appear to be listening to this opportunity, even though it could benefit every single household in the country by bringing down their energy costs. Now, with all of this outlined, it raises the crucial question: why is the UK being so hostile to this industry? Is it about genuine consumer protection? Is it simply a combination of ignorance and laziness to learn about Bitcoin? Or is it about maintaining control over the financial system that Bitcoin fundamentally challenges? As we know, the UK government are developing the digital pound, which is their own central bank digital currency, which would give them more opportunities to censor your transactions and control what you do. My view is that it's probably a mixture of everything, but I'll let you be the judge of that down below in the comments. But one thing that I know for sure is that we deserve better. We deserve governments and regulators who understand the assets that they're creating laws around. We deserve a government who will do everything that they can to try and bring down energy costs for households. We deserve a currency that can't be devalued by governments printing money. I don't think that we should be sheltered from the best performing asset of the decade, and we deserve to be treated like critically thinking adults who are responsible for their own actions. Our culture seems to have developed into something where people are resistant from taking responsibility over their own lives and rely on the government far too much. If we want future success for this country, I think this needs to change. Now, I'm afraid that covers everything for today. I'll leave all the relevant links down below in the description to things I discussed, and I'll leave a link to Bitcoin Policy UK if you want to learn more about what they're doing. If you did get value from the video, please hit that like button down below. Make sure you subscribe to stay up to date with all of my Bitcoin related content. And if you do want to learn how to get Bitcoin exposure within your workplace pension, check out this video on screen now to my video breaking down exactly how to do that. But with all that being said, take it easy and enjoy the rest of your day.